With our rolling coverage of the BRICS summit in Sandton, and Diabo has been tracking the events there throughout the day. Let's cross live to her now. Diabo, over to you.
Thank you, Colin. Well, amongst the many interactions that we've had here today, you'll remember that BRICS does not only talk about economic relations. The BRICS member countries are not only about economic relations, they're also about political relations and strengthening relations between these two countries. While we may not have our president with us right here, but we have his second in command, the spokesperson for the president, Ms. Khusela Diko. Thank you very much. Is Khusela Diko these days?
Yes, and you'll get me in trouble with the deputy president. He's the second in command.
He's the second in command now. Well, we always get him through you, the president that is. But thank you very much for making time to speak to us. It's been quite an extraordinary journey. One of my colleagues, Francis Hurd, tweets that we have half of the world's population converged in Johannesburg, and I must say we've done a very good job of putting together the summit. It is really outstanding, very well done. How has the journey been of putting this together from a presidential perspective?
Well, Diabo, I think that, from a presidential perspective, maybe to start there, we would want all the credits to go to the Interministerial Committee led by Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, who would have put this together, obviously with a number of ministers. I mean, we'd obviously commend the work that the Department of International Relations and Cooperation has done, putting this together, but it's been a collaborative effort. It's been months and months of a lot of hard work, and government as a whole, across the three spheres, across departments, did come together and ensure that it is the success that it is now. And as you're saying, it's not just a meeting to discuss trade. It's a gathering of people, and this is what we've tried to show, to use the centenary of Tata Nelson Mandela and Mama Albertina Sisulu to show BRICS and the world, what a human face. I think it was Tata Mandela who said that Africa will show the world a human face, and this is what we've done. It's been extraordinary. Yesterday, that there was the cultural show. Yes. Where the president hosted other heads of state, and again underpinning what BRICS is about. So it's your economic and your trade relations, it's your political and security cooperation, but also your cultural and people-to-people exchanges.
It's common cause that when you have summits or conferences of this nature, you would still have those people who are unhappy, civil society who would be protesting outside like we saw today, who have concerns of their own. How do you deal with that from a presidential perspective, with civil society organizations who have issues to raise with summits such as these, and they want certain things to be addressed and to be talked about?
Well, just speaking to civil society, I think we should not be alarmed, we should not be shocked. You have a gathering of the world's leaders. They've descended in Johannesburg, and people have very important issues that must be addressed. I know that earlier there was a memorandum that was delivered around the petrol prices. There are people who are raising, issues as varied as, treatment of women. They're raising issues relating to India. It must be expected that will happen. But as we have always done, we welcome engagement on those issues. The heads of state are continuously briefed on the issues that people are raising, and that is exactly why they are here, to discuss the challenges that we face as a people, throughout the world. These are not challenges that are unique to South Africa, and to look at how best we can support one another to be able to resolve that. We continue to believe in multilateralism. We continue to believe that, like a grouping like BRICS should, work together to ensure that, we're able to address the challenges confronting humanity as a whole.
I can imagine our viewers sitting at home. They say now it's the 10th BRICS summit, so it has been going on. It's now the 10th time. In Ndenzela, what does it do for me sitting at home?
Well, if you look at the resolutions of the BRICS summit that have taken place over a number of years, the first thing that I think we must commend is that no less than 90% of those resolutions have been implemented. So I'll give you a typical example, and one that is well known, the new development bank that we spoke about, which again sought to complement existing systems in the world around finance, but I think push the envelope a little bit also when it comes to what is our place as emerging economies. when it comes to global governance.
Yes.
Now that bank has been set up. It is already, the offices in South Africa, the African Regional Bank has been launched, and already commitment has been made in terms of providing facilities for infrastructure development in South Africa. Now, that is the work that is done, which creates the jobs that our people so desperately need. That is the work that is done by creating such a facility. We're able to say, National Development Plan calls upon us to build infrastructure in South Africa. Where is the funding going to come from? So it is those type of decisions. But I mean, you have seen in South Africa just a few days ago, during the state visit with China, President Xi Jinping and the President unveiled a new car that is being produced at the Guga IDZ in the Nelson Mandela Bay. Now, again, it's our people who have gotten those jobs, So as we become, a hub for the automotive industry in South Africa, it's these collaborations that are able to give fruition to that.
I'm glad that you spoke about the new development bank, because I know that to date it has extended around $5.7 million US dollars worth of loans for around 16 projects, and still going. In fact, there was an agreement that was signed just this afternoon with Sao Paulo. We're planning to open another office in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. But tell me about the bilateral relations and all these memorandum of understanding that we are signing. What are they designed to do?
Okay, so on the new development bank, the President of the Republic, that is Cyril Ramaphosa, will be meeting with a representative of the bank this afternoon. And I think from there we'll have possibly a lot more to say around the bank. Right. But in terms of agreements, the President has concluded just now a bilateral meeting with the President of the Russian Federation, His Excellency Vladimir Putin, where two agreements were signed. It was agreements focusing on water resources, cooperation around water resources, and an agreement focusing on cooperation around agriculture. Minister Zogwana and Minister Gugile Ngwindi respectively signed those agreements with the heads of state present. Now, what that seeks to do is to ensure that in terms of agro-processing on the agricultural agreement, we're able to get support. Russia wants to come to South Africa and open, for example, a machine maintenance plant to support our agricultural industry. Now, President Ramaphosa has been calling for an agricultural revolution, and you can see through such an agreement where you begin to bring in partners, we're able to do exactly what we said we would do, grow our economy in order to create jobs for our people. On water resources, about skilling and training and sharing experiences in that area. But there was a lot of discussion speaking about how do we expand, trade between Russia and South Africa. I think there's been almost a 50% growth since last year, but we need to do more. So we also spoke about cooperation around defense. We spoke about cooperation around space exploration. We also spoke about our energy needs. I think a raging issue in South Africa has always been Russia's position and, our nuclear capacity. So the presidents did have a discussion about that, and President Ramaphosa has reaffirmed South Africa's position. Which is? Our position is that we have, our resource plan calls for an energy mix, which means that we'll continue to use fossil fuels. We have a lot of coal in South Africa. Those mines are not going to be closed anytime. So we will continue to use fossil fuel, we'll continue to use renewables, we'll continue to use nuclear. Diabo, you know that we do use nuclear through the Koeberg power station, for example. But any expansion that we're going to undertake, whether it's in nuclear, it's in renewables or anyway, we'll only do it at a scale and pace that South Africa can afford. And the President went to great length to explain that our economic situation right now is that we are not in a position to make firm commitments on nuclear capacity expansion. So those are the ongoing discussions that we continue to have. But I just want to put it out there. I think there's been a lot of excitement in South Africa around President Putin.
Yes.
They share a very warm relationship with President Ramaphosa. South Africa and Russia remain long-standing friends, and we're hoping that that relationship will deepen further.
Ms. Khusela Diko, thank you very much. The spokesperson of President Cyril Ramaphosa has joined us, giving us the heads up of the journey of putting together the summit, and also what we've always wanted to know, what is happening with that Russia nuclear agreement. And like she said, that the President says that we have an energy mix and we are not going to do anything on nuclear that the country cannot afford at this pace. So everything is still on track. However, it will be done at a pace that the country can afford. With that, Colin, it's back to you in the studio.
Diabo, thanks very much indeed. That's Diabo Seto, who's sitting out in Sandton, north of Johannesburg, at the BRICS summit. Other important issues.